What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Grim, and today we're going to be dissecting pre-season testing.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
Alright guys, pre-season testing is finally complete, and if you guys were up to date with what's happening, I uploaded a bunch of shorts on YouTube and Instagram just to really go through pre-season testing. I watched all the coverage, and now we're going to dissect what I think is going to happen in this 2024 Formula 1 season. Now, straight off the bat, Max Verstappen is going to be the 2024 Formula 1 World Champion. That kid's going to run away with it. And it's going to be another 2023 display from Max Verstappen, if not even better. Winning, I reckon, 95% of all the races this season. One thing I will say, though, by the end of this season, maybe the last 4 or so races, I think this battle between the top teams are going to be much, much closer. And we're going to see Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, and maybe Aston Martin and RB close the gap to Red Bull a lot. I think that we can see a McLaren race win this season, a Mercedes race win this season, of course, a Ferrari race win this season, and some crazy things would have to happen, but I think Aston Martin may potentially get a win this season. But a lot of crazy things needs to happen. Max Verstappen maybe a DNF or something like that. We might even see RB on the podium with Daniel Ricciardo or Yuki Tsunoda. I personally think Ricciardo could possibly get that podium for the RB team. They are looking pretty solid. Ferrari are definitely the second best team at the moment. They're looking very solid with all their runs, but with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc obviously topping the time sheet with their times. We'll go through times a little bit later, but after looking at Max, if you looked at Perez's run, you think, okay, hold on, Ferrari could be very close to Red Bull, but with Max Verstappen's run, they're just Red Bull and Max Verstappen are just so far ahead, it looks like, and it's pretty unfortunate because we were hoping that we were going to get a closer season this season, but it just looks like another crazy runaway from Max Verstappen and Red Bull, which obviously I'm a Max Verstappen fan. I can't complain. He's probably going to be the 4-time world champion. He's one of the best drivers to ever enter Formula 1, so credit to Max and Red Bull, but let's see what happens. We can't just assume straight away. We haven't even hit race 1, but surprisingly, I think that we might see a Ferrari pole position going into the Bahrain Grand Prix, because on one lap pace, Ferrari still look very, very quick. McLaren were pretty disappointing on one lap pace, but I don't feel like they're showing their full cards and their full hand of what the car is capable of. There's going to be a close battle between Aston Martin, Mercedes, McLaren, and RB, throwing RB in the mix too. I think they're going to be very, very close going into qualifying next weekend at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and each team will be closer and closer, trying to close the gap to Red Bull Racing. Haas F1 team do look the slowest at the moment, unfortunately, so it's going to be close between Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. I think Kevin needs to really perform a lot in qualifying. We've seen Nico Hülkenberg performing really well last year, even though the car wasn't that great. And they had said they're running the car with long runs just to really try and work out what's happening with those tires, because obviously they'd qualify pretty high and then fall to the back of the grid by the end of the race. They're really trying to focus on that, Haas. It wasn't smooth sailing for Williams. The most two unreliable cars this testing to me would have to be Williams and McLaren. Unfortunately, McLaren, I feel like, were pretty unreliable, and so was the Williams. Obviously, the major moment we had was probably Logan Sargent's spin, but everyone else was pretty reliable and all the drivers were pretty solid. Had Ocon go off a couple of times with a couple of lockups, but every single driver pretty much locked up during the course of preseason testing. Alpine have a lot of work to do. They need to improve going into the season. I feel like they're the second slowest team, right in front of Haas. And I'll give you guys my top 10 run of who is fastest, in my opinion. It'll be a close battle between the Williams team and the Stake F1 team, Sauber. We'll see what happens between them two. I think that Sauber could edge them out with their driver lineup. It depends how good Sargent can perform. But there was talks that Sargent is more confident this season and is really ready to take a massive role at Williams to try and get them back into the pecking order. And like I said before, an RB surprise podium. I think that Daniel Ricciardo could get a surprise podium with RB. And if he does do that, it's going to be interesting to see if he gets that seat at Red Bull. Another interesting thing that I personally think that's going to happen, I think we're going to see a switch with Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez come mid-season. So that's my little prediction. We'll see if it comes true. We're going to wait half a year and see if that actually happens. But that's what I'm going to predict right now. I said it right now, right here. So let's have a look and see what happens between Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo. And talking about Sergio Perez, I think Perez is struggling a lot compared to Max Verstappen. Let's see if he can find his momentum going into the first race at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Really bars ahead of everybody with Max Verstappen. Not Sergio Perez, but like I said, but Max Verstappen really outbarring everybody. In second, I have Ferrari, a close second, really just a little bit ahead of my third team. And then I still think they're probably like maybe 200ths of a second behind Red Bull at the moment. But on one lap pace, I feel like we can see Ferrari get pole position, but we'll see what happens. Come the end of the season, I feel like we're going to see a race win from Ferrari. So we're going to see what happens between the teams, but Ferrari come in second for me. In third, I have Mercedes-Benz. In fourth, Aston Martin. And fifth, McLaren. But I do think it's very close between Mercedes, Aston, and McLaren. I've got RB next, which I think they're ahead of. They're pretty much ahead of the midfield, but sort of at that front end, I guess, or ahead of the. They're ahead of the midfield and then more close to the front end, but still behind McLaren. And then I have Sauber in front of Williams, and then Alpine second last. They have a lot of work to do to try and catch up to the rest of the field, but I think they will find their momentum after a couple of races this year. And then I've got Haas at the back. If we look at Formula One's page right here, with the qualifying simulation pace, Red Bull are the quickest, Ferrari are 200ths of a second slower, McLaren nearly 400ths of a second slower. They reckon Mercedes are half a second slower, RB 700ths of a second slower, Aston Martin 800ths of a second slower, Alpine, Sauber and Williams over a second slower than Red Bull Racing on the qualifying simulation pace, and Haas 1.3 seconds slower than Red Bull Racing. That's on the F1 page and the stats they have brought up. And if we go to race simulation pace, we have Red Bull obviously the quickest, but we have Mercedes in front of Ferrari 200ths of a second quicker. Just ahead of Ferrari actually, considering, but I feel like that Ferrari are still just a bit quicker than Mercedes on race pace. We're going to have to see going into Bahrain. They got Ferrari third, fourth McLaren, 400ths of a second slower than Red Bull. Aston Martin over half a second slower than Red Bull with RB 700ths of a second. Sauber, then Alpine, then Williams, and then Haas all over a second. And Haas just scraping. They're 1.49 of a second slower than Red Bull's race simulation pace. Nearly 1.5 seconds. So that data is really, really scary to look at. That Red Bull looks freaking quick, and that is because, obviously, of Max Verstappen. Now, let's go through the timing sheets, guys. Carlos Sainz did have the quickest time overall out of everybody. He done that on the second day, 1:29.921. Charles Leclerc came in second with a 1:30.322. George Russell in third place with a 1:30.368. Guan Yu Zhou or Zhou Wan Yu got a 1:30.647, putting himself in P4. I think that was a low fuel run though. Sergio Perez in 5th with a 1:30.679 and Max Verstappen in 6th with a 1:30.755. Yuki Tsunoda then in 7th, 8th Alex Albon, 9th Oscar Piastri, 10th Lewis Hamilton, who was getting a lot of laps in, but obviously to me looked like he was struggling a bit. Lewis Hamilton got a 1:31.066. Fernando Alonso 11th, Lando Norris 12th, 13th, Daniel Ricciardo, 14th, Hulkenberg, 15th, Lance Stroll, 16th, Esteban Ocon, 17th, Pierre Gasly, 18th, Valtteri Bottas, 19th, Logan Sargent, and 20th, Kevin Magnussen. That is the timing order throughout day 1 to day 3. If you compare all the drivers' best lap times that they put in, we don't know fuel loads, we don't know settings, but it's interesting to see. We see, obviously, Ferrari up there. We know Red Bull are up there. We know Mercedes. Well, we know Mercedes are up there from their pace and what they're doing, but if you look at their fastest time, they aren't that, crazy fast. We had George Russell in third, but then we had Lewis Hamilton all the way down the bottom in P10. But I feel like Lewis Hamilton was doing more long distance runs for for Mercedes. Interesting, Alonso didn't look too crazy about the car. He said it's a good car, he's happy to be back in the car, but didn't look like they had a spring in their step like they did last preseason testing. Obviously, Lance Stroll attended the whole 3 days last year, obviously breaking his wrist and couldn't attend. We had Djokovic in the car, who done really well last year, but Lance Stroll was back in the car, of course. And like I said, the most two unreliable cars were McLaren and Williams. Listen, prediction straight off the bat, Max Verstappen, 4-time world champion. I think that we're going to get a win from Ferrari, maybe McLaren, and maybe Mercedes. And let's just throw Aston Martin in the mix too to get a win. We're going to get a lot of podium finishes going for third place. But it's going to be an interesting battle between the two Ferrari drivers, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. But come the end of the season, we're going to see a lot of drivers fighting, I think, Max Verstappen for the title. But by then, I think Max would have ran away with the title. So bring on 2025, I guess. And I think that Lewis Hamilton has a chance to become world champion because Ferrari are on the trajectory all the way up. And then we have the new rule changes for 2026. But hey, that's 2 years away. Let's not worry about that. It's 2024 Formula One season. The Bahrain Grand Prix coming up shortly. Hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. I've been doing a lot of reels on that. Plus YouTube shorts. Check all them out. Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. My name is Grim. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time in my Formula One video. Thank you.